Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order this evening. Good evening, everybody. This is the Community Consolidated School District 46 Board of Education meeting this evening, Wednesday, February 11th, 2026 at 6 p.m. here at Frederick School. I need a call to order tonight for the board, including our two new student representatives for this evening. Welcome to Ella and Bennett. Thank you for sitting at the board table this evening. We're going to call to order with your attendance as well.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
Nash. Absent. Halverson.
Here.
Hune.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Weedman. Absent. Nelson.
Here.
And Peck.
Here.
Thank you. That's quorum. Please join me for the pledge. Thank you. I need a motion to approve this evening's agenda, please.
I'll move. I'll second.
Okay.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Halverson.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
And Hune.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The agenda is approved. Do we have any public comments signed up at the moment? No public comments, okay. We're going to move right into the presentation this evening, which is welcoming the Park Campus Leader of the Pack. So I will hand it over. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hello, Dr. Back, Dr. Glickman, Board of Education, families. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Jen Voss. I am the Dean at Park Campus, as well as the Leader of the Pack sponsor. Tonight we have several students here who would like to give you an update on what's going on at Park Campus.
Leader of the Pack are 7th and 8th grade students who continue to work hard and bring a sense of community to Park.
Leader of the Pack has been busy with many events at Park. On February 21st, we will be going to Avon Food Pantry to help restock shelves, pack food bags, and distribute to families in need.
We have been hard at work filling paw print cafe orders. Students earn paw prints by following Wool's way and being safe, responsible, and respectful. Students then turn them in for prizes, and we fill the orders.
For our No Place for Hate campaign, each grade level was assigned a children's book. We learned that we all are different, but together we all work together and celebrate each other.
Here are some pictures of students putting together their projects.
We would like to thank the Board of Education, Dr. Glickman, Mrs. Gluck, Mr. Malamed, Ms. Morales, and the D46 community for allowing us this time to introduce ourselves and given the opportunity to speak about what makes Park Campus such a wonderful place to be. We look forward to seeing you in April.
Just wait, I might have questions. Do you have any questions for our students tonight?
Any questions from the board? Is it, no? No, but I know we'll probably get additional updates at the
Yes.
table as well. We're going to move to that too, yeah.
They have plenty
Thank you
to
for
share.
being here. That's wonderful, yes.
Thank you.
For being here. Okay, that does move us into the board report section of the evening, which is an opportunity for each board member to share any updates. I will start with our student representatives this evening. So you are first up for your board reports. I can start with Ella, and then we can kind of just move down the line.
Our K through 4th teachers are hard at work, especially with the World Reading Day. First graders celebrated our 4th virtual author visits. Students asked thoughtful questions, heard a story that won't be released until April, learned fun facts about groundhogs, connected with the author from Canada, and we learned how to treat others with disabilities from the author who shared personal experiences. What an incredible day of learning and connection. In the 4th grade, they did an economics store over the past few weeks. Students made, advertised, and sold projects they made, including squishies, rainbow loom, and notebooks, etc.
Our 5th grade through 8th grade teachers are working hard with their students. 6th grade students just finished their 3rd essay on comparing two characters overcoming differences. They are now working on book talks with their independent reading books. In science, students are working on creating climate models. During math, the 6th graders are applying their knowledge of decimals and percents to real-life applications. For example, the savings of electric versus gas cars. The 7th graders completed a mission to Mars research paper looking at different mediums for information and transferring that into an essay. In science, students are starting a turtle box incubation. More information to come at our next board update. Our 8th graders just finished up their Holocaust choice projects. We learned a lot about the Holocaust. We had a Holocaust speaker come to Park to discuss her experience.
All classrooms have been working hard on their No Place for Hate notebooks. Class discussions and other projects was a great experience understanding even though we are different, we all share many same likes and dislikes.
Thank you both for that update. I'll move down the line. Mrs. Halverson.
I do have an update today. I wanted to circle back to the III conference that the board attended. We all broke up into different groups and attended different seminars and lectures on various topics, education related. And while there were a lot of events that I attended, I want to just zero in on one. I thought it was very interesting, so I'm just going to share some of the things I learned. The seminar was called The Surprising Power of Belonging in Schools. It was phenomenal, and I really would love to share every single thing that the presenter shared, but I won't. His name was Dr. Doug Bolton, and he started by explaining that the core of our being is to belong, whether it's just being a person or if you're in a classroom. So that was kind of the foundation of his talk. He said that 65% of high school students feel like they're checked out and there's nothing they can do about it, which is kind of a staggering number. That's more than half of the kids just feel like they don't want to be at school. So let me just pause to say that District 46 has done phenomenal work in the SEL, social, emotional, and learning department to make sure that our students are feeling like they belong at school. So everything that I'm going to say is it's not specific to our district. I think we're one step ahead and we're doing a really good job. So just want to add that disclaimer. This is nationwide statistics. He also said that 25% of students are chronically absent from schools in Illinois. That's a huge percentage of kids. He also said, so I'm going to give you all the bad stuff, and then he also follows up with what we can do. So this is not all doom and gloom. He said that emergency room visits spike during school months. So during the summer, emergency room visits are very, very low. In September, they spike, they drop Thanksgiving week, and then they go right back up, and they increase till May. So our country is looking at a problem with how kids feel when they're at school. So what can we do about this? He said the good news is that we have the tools that we need right now. It doesn't take money, it doesn't need to crunch our budget, and I think that's really reassuring because we do need to make sure that our students are wanting to be at school and that they feel like they belong. So he gave 5 strategies, and I'm just gonna pinpoint one. He said that if teachers can help students pause and ponder, it helps not only the students, but also the teachers. Because during the school day, kids are busy, they're going from class to class, teachers are busy, students are coming in, going out, and there's very little downtime during the day. And he said, if we can just build in a beginning, a middle, and an end to each class period, so this is for middle school and up, then we get kind of a natural flow of expanding and contracting, which is a good rhythm that we all need to have in our lives. But students today are expanding and expanding and expanding with information, with social media. They just have a lot going on, and they're not given the resources necessarily or the example of stepping back. So he said, and this was just one of his 5 strategies of things that we can be doing across the country, is when the kids come into the class, the teachers can do a welcome, what did he call it? A welcome ritual. So just take a quick minute while you're taking attendance. And I think many of our teachers are already doing this. I've done some subbing previously in the middle school, and I know that it's happening in this building, and I can't think it's specific to just the middle school. I think our district is doing a nice job of this already. But welcoming the students into the class, take a beat, just talk about what happened over your weekend, the glimmers and dimmers, like what was great about your weekend and what was not so great. And with 25 kids on average in a classroom, 8 periods a day, and 180 days in the school year, that's a lot of time to connect kids to kids. So they are, even if you have a lone wolf who is really an introvert, they can still be part of that group and feel like they're coming to a place every day where they do belong. So that's the beginning. Then you go into your content of whatever the teacher is going to be explaining. And that's, you know, the core of the class. But then also, this is the most important part, he said, which so easily gets overlooked, is when the teachers have a lot of work that they need to convey, a lot of information they need to convey to the students, and then they just rush the kids out the classroom. Again, not our district, but this is happening in a lot of schools, so the kids are just being cranked through the mill. And he said if teachers can take a minute to pause at the end of the class, recap, and then that gives the teachers a chance to reset, and it also gives the kids a chance to just take a breath, which I'm not doing a good job of because I'm not used to speaking in front of groups like this. But anyways, I'll take a minute to contract. So I loved the conference, and I was really impressed, so that was my one thing I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Mack, before we move on to another board member, I've told our student board members that there might be things that they wanted to comment on, and I was watching you while Mrs. Halverson was talking, and I just wondered, do either of you have any comments to make about what you just heard? No pressure.
I do have one thing to say. What was the reason why like a lot of the students were absent?
That's a really great question. And I wasn't part of the study that they did, but what I concluded from the presenter's explanation was that if kids are going to school and they don't really feel like they are part of a group, they're just kind of an ant in a giant anthill, then why would they want to be there? So they don't have that motivation to get up in the morning and say, I'm excited to go to school today, and then go. They wake up and think, I don't know, I could just go back to sleep. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Halverson. Mrs. Hume?
Thank you. It's great to hear. You know, I'm also going to reflect on sessions that I went to at that conference and just kind of hearing the variety of things that are possible from something that's very important in terms of SEL for that development. I focused on elements that, because as a relatively new board member, that I wanted to learn more about. So I went to sessions about strategic planning and also policy, because I sit on the policy committee. And I thought a few things that were interesting is like this idea of the strategic plan, which we'll be taking on later this year. And you know, you have to really think about the future, like 10 years into the future. What do we want our community to say about us right now in terms of how we plan for that future? And so it's daunting, I think, at any point. But right now, there's a lot of instability and uncertainty, just of what could happen this year, let alone 10 years from now. And so, I take that very seriously and look forward to working with my colleagues here to be able to help be a part of that process. And I will say that in all the sessions that I went to, I learned a lot. But I was also greatly reassured that many of the things that they were suggesting to people are things that this board and this district already do. And so for me, it felt wonderful to know that there's a great systems already in place here that we can build on for the future. And just briefly, I also attended the policy, and there's a lot of discussion that gave us some scenarios to look at in terms of like how, are you sort of compliant, or are you competitive in terms of policy? And I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it. One of the recommendations was to use Press and Press Plus, which we do use, to make sure that you're compliant. But how do we make sure that we're competitive in making, in being for our community, that have policies in place that are dealing with our current issues, but also anticipating what could be in the future. And so I thought one interesting scenario that they shared was with AI. And I know that that's something that right now the district is gathering information from stakeholders, from families, staff, teachers, and other people in the community to find out about their thoughts and concerns about AI. And I had jotted down in my notes, and I literally don't know if it was a recommendation or something I thought of, because it was a few months ago, but the idea of having a student advisory panel to the board on AI, I thought was an interesting idea that is worth exploring.
Thank you, Ms. Hugh. Mrs. Nash?
Good evening. So for those of you who don't know, I was unable to attend Triple I this year, but from what I've heard from my board colleagues thus far in your reports, I will say that that rings familiar to me from prior years as well, where I feel like our district is in a position of strength and leadership when it comes to a lot of things that we see both in our macro and micro environments, and that's really affirming for the work that we do here for D46 and our students, staff, and community. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Nash. Mrs. Braden?
Okay, I'm also going to share some highlights from my conference experience. Because we have a lot of activity and energy around multilingual education in the district these days, I focused a lot of my time at the conference on that topic, and wanted to highlight one session that I went to, and I will preface it by saying I went to the session and it was great, and I soaked up all the ideas and I took all these notes because I wanted to talk to Ms. Bowman about all these great ideas, and then I turned around and of course she was there, and she already knew the people who were speaking and was part of the consortium, and I was like, of course. So it very much echoed my Ms. Yoon's experience of we're on it, which was great. That said, so everything I say here, Ms. Bowman already heard, and I know a lot of this is already in motion, but a couple of things I thought was, and it was about barriers to low English proficiency parent participation in the district. So how do we welcome in families whose English is not their first language? And so a couple of things I thought were interesting were how do we best equip our staff to communicate with bilingual families? And they talked a bit about stipends for bilingual staff to assist in translation, to be available, and incentives for staff to get their EL endorsement as well. So those were two interesting, little pieces for, maybe future contract negotiation with our certified staff. And then I know the idea of instructional PD, how do you actually build bridges between the two languages in specific domains of instruction? And I know they mentioned Adelante as a provider of that PD, and I know our district is already working with Adelante, so that I know you shared that last time. But they had, the district that presented, they had a PD for everyone that they called Language and Literacy for All. And I thought it was just a really interesting concept. It didn't necessarily just focus on English language learners, but instead this idea of how do we embed those instructional strategies for all students to learn. They talked about community partnerships, and I wrote down, our library. We have a great partnership with our library, but they also mentioned Latino-owned businesses. And we have a great organization, Mano a Mano, in our community that so I think, further exploring partnerships would be great. And lastly, and kudos, because we're already in this, but there's an EL consortium that actually gathers data to hopefully be able to aggregate what strategies are actually most effective in promoting learning. And I was excited to hear right afterwards that we're already part of that consortium, and we'll be able to contribute to as well as benefit from that data that's being collected. So that was exciting and inspiring as I thought about the direction that we're heading as a district overall, and it was a great experience. I did have one other board update, which was just a legislative update. So we've all been advocating for not just school funding. So if you're new at the table and wondering how do we pay for all this great stuff you see going on in the district, it's a combination of our property taxes from the homeowners in our district, so everyone who owns a house, and businesses as well, and then from our state. And so we've been advocating our state legislators to basically fully fund the needs that the state has calculated that we should get. We don't get 100% of what the state says that we need. So we've been advocating for more of that, specifically around what's called mandated categoricals, which are things we have to do, like transport everyone to school and pay for the buses and pay for special education, very, very important. However, those are mandated but not fully funded by the state. And so there are two bills that were introduced this week. First, to fix that gap and end the proration of mandated categoricals, as well as the second one, to keep the state on track with ensuring all districts are adequately funded by 2027. So just wanted to highlight, I don't know where those will go, they're new, or how they'll evolve, but I'll keep my eyes on them for you. Thank you.
Mr. Weedman?
Sorry, I was unaware that we were doing the reports on the triple I, so I am not prepared to do that. And so I have nothing for you.
Okay, no worries. Mrs. Miller?
So I tend to talk a little longer on these things, so I create slides to keep myself honest and quick. So I'm gonna just put them up. So I too am so grateful for the opportunity to go to Triple I, and always am inspired by what I hear, and also I try to go with a couple, or at least 3 foci in mind when I go, so that I don't get distracted. So I focused on safety and risk for the people in our district, because we're a people first business, if you will, and the national context in which we're educating kids right now, and also collaboration in general, and how do other districts do that, and what does that look like? So similar to what Mrs. Hune and Mrs. Braden talked about in terms of how do we partner with some other organizations, what does that look like? Next slide, please, Daryl. I also am always grateful for recognizing that, we're already doing that in many, many places. So this is just one small example. I was specifically focused on how do we know how healthy our district is, and also maintain privacy, like how can we monitor that? And they talked about a few different things. They actually talked about boots and how important just adequate clothing is for our O&M staff, because it's good for them, because we care about them as people, but also it reduces costs, reduces workman's comp, and it focuses our attention on the environmental quality of our grounds and facilities, which prevents other injuries of students and other staff. They talked about training, and I recognize that in our district we do de-escalation training for our entire staff. I think that's true, yeah, which reduces costs associated with increasing rates of student aggression and behavior issues, and then improves the learning environment, and of course is just good for people. And then it talked about an experience modification factor. I don't know if we tracked that, but I thought it was interesting, because by tracking that, it protects staff's well-being while keeping people meaningfully connected to their work and to their colleagues. It also reduces costs associated with workman's comp and some other things too, which you can read. and then it provides opportunities for community collaboration. So I'm not as familiar with the experience modification factor, but they suggested that we track that. So those were some things that I was grateful for. Next slide, please. So then the next area that I focused on was kind of the context. This was in November, so immigration was, and still is, in the forefront of our news and is relevant to our context in which our kids are learning. So they really talked about how federal legislation has now been codified in the state legislation. And as you know, the state legislation, and perhaps the federal too, says that every student has the right to a free and appropriate education. So I'm, regardless of immigration status. And the federal, they talked about how willfully disregarding this legislation can result in taxpayers paying damages. So we have to abide by our state legislation. And then it amplified the importance of training our front office staff so they know exactly how to protect their students and their sense, not only physically, but also the sense of safety. So again, I was glad because I think we're already doing that, which is fantastic. They talked about how this really is coming down to a conversation about the First and Fourth Amendments. And so they suggested we follow that and be really clear about our policy, making sure that we have clear direction and that is a way to keep our students and staff physically and psychologically safe. Next slide, please. So the next piece that I was listening for was collaboration. So I'm going to back up. This is a graphic that we created as part of a community cafe that we did several years ago. And it is a little different than an org chart. And in traditional organizational org chart, you've got power at the top and then it kind of filters down, and that's totally appropriate in an organization. In a community, I think it's a little bit different. So if you take that piece of paper, really, and you wrap it around, it creates a circle because eventually the blue and the green connect. We have 33, I think, % of our staff are also residents, so they're also parents. So it's kind of this, this beautiful constellation of people working together to wrap arms, lock arms, and protect our kids' ability to learn. And so with that as context, that middle circle is, we've talked a little bit about how it's a tongue and groove. We have a metaphor that says we work on the balcony and staff works on the dance floor and never the two shall meet. In practice, though, I think it's more that the superintendent, we want her to be on the balcony sometimes because she knows things that we don't know. And likewise, we want to be on the dance floor sometimes, not to dictate, but to understand how policy actually is implemented. So with that as context, that's the context I go into when I go to III, and I was looking at collaboration through that context. So if you could go to the next slide. I attended a session that looked at Wilmette, and Dr. Mack, you and I were at the same one on this one. And it was really interesting how Wilmette works. And I liked Wilmette because they have neighborhood schools similar to what we have. And they have an intergovernmental cooperation committee. This is it focuses on cost sharing initiatives, and they picked their goals. It's not like you have to transfer everything, but they focus on sustainability, mental health, and civility. They meet every 6 weeks, 2 members from each of their boards, their library, their park district, their school boards, and their village board, and they work collaboratively to identify issues that impact residents. They also have a safety committee so that it's a village-wide effort that includes administrative staff, elected officials, PTO, PTA members. They meet 5 times annually, and they work to promote safety across the village because, of course, when our students are in the building, they're safe, but they leave the building and they transport. They travel between the buildings too, so it's a comprehensive way of making sure that we're all on the same page, or they're all on the same page. So I just thought that was interesting and something we might want to consider. And then that left me with, thank you, Daryl, just potential questions we might want to go into strategic planning with. So what health indicators might we consider to inform our learner safety, not only our kids, but also our staff? What policies might we want to examine for clarity relative to safety specifically? And then how might we more effectively share information and leverage our taxpayers' investments for community safety and other relevant topics that we could discern. So that was my takeaway from III. And then the only other board report that I had is that Dr. Mack and I both attended the village hearing about the supplement plan and wanted to thank the village board for making that plan available to us, doing their best to disseminate it. And I am super excited about the plan and how it includes open space, to include connectivity by bike and pedestrian paths. And then also I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to integrate the comments that they've requested about that plan. And that comment period is open until the 16th of this month. So I'd highly encourage any of you to take a look at that plan. It will impact schools. And again, wanted to thank them for making it available to us so that we can talk about it. So the 16th.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. My triple I takeaway was unique this year because one of the things that the Illinois Association of School Boards does at this conference every year is puts together a panel of resolutions that they are recommending for school districts, or school districts will recommend to them for discussion amongst the members of the conference, right, that can go into effect in the different school districts. And each school district in the state of Illinois that attends the conference is responsible for selecting a delegate to attend what's called the delegate assembly and review those resolutions, discuss those resolutions. So there's, a couple hundred people in one large room looking over these resolutions, deciding on what is good, what would be appropriate, and the IASB in a non-binding recommendation gives an approval saying, yes, we do recommend this, or no, we don't. And several of my colleagues have already done this in past years. I never have, so it came to me this year. And in past years, there was usually, 10 or 12 or 15 or more resolutions. And this year, the year that I go, there's one. So it was easy in terms of resolution, but just for your information, the meeting still stretched for 5 hours because there was a consent agenda that they all argued about. And then we got to the resolution at the very end. So it was fascinating to sit in that room, which was about 12 degrees Fahrenheit in there, and watch. And I think they do that on purpose. Still lasted 5 hours, but didn't work. And they argued the consent agenda, which we have a consent agenda too, which we rarely argue about. Once in a while there's a comment on it. But this time there was multiple board members from multiple districts around the state. And it's fascinating to see the breadth of issues and breadth of comments that come across from all of the school districts in the state. And I believe, I think there's something along the lines of 600 or 700 school districts in the state, across the entire state. So you have a large number of people at that event talking about it and conversing with it. Between 300 and 400, I wanted to do the 6 and 7 thing, but we'll go down to the 300 to 400. I get one in every meet. See, I have one here. See, right? I got one. Every time I work it into the meeting, it's good to go. You did. You totally did. So that was the extent. And I, of course, Mrs. Miller talked about the one that we jointly attended, which was just as interesting. And so I didn't have as many workshops this year because that particular delegate assembly and that meeting takes up the bulk of the time that I'm downtown there. So really a nice experience. And so now next year, if somebody else wants to go when they have 12 or 15 resolutions to debate, then you can take it back. And I'll just do the one with one. I also would like to, once again this week, extend our condolences from the Board of Education to the Williams family on the tragic loss of their son, Jonathan, in an accident in the past couple of weeks. He was a beloved and loved member of the District 46 community and of the District 127 community and of the CLC community. And we offer our condolences to the family and are keeping them close to our hearts. That concludes the board reports, and I will hand it over to Dr. Glickman for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Gluck, who's going to talk with us about the NAEP exam and an institute day we have coming up this week.
Thanks. Good evening, board. The first thing I want to talk about is NAEP. That is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It is given in grades 4, 8, and 12. The way that students take that is it is randomly selected across the nation, randomly selected schools and students we were lucky enough to be chosen to have 45 of our students who were randomly selected from GMS take the assessment. So 45 of our 8th graders took that on February 4th, and they took the math test and the reading test. So it was a great experience. And we look forward to seeing the results. It'll be all the compiled results from across the nation together from that. So in addition to that, we have no school for our students on Friday. And that is because our staff will be participating in the Lake County February. And I say that like that because they have like 3 R's in the middle of it. Should stretch it out a little bit more. It's the Lake County Institute Day that's run by the Regional Office of Education. It will be at 3 sites this year. So Vernon Hills High School will house our pre-K through 5th grade staff, as well as fine arts and librarians, or our info specialists. Lake Zurich High School will have grades 6-12, because this is Lake County, so 6-8 for us, but 6-12, and the deans and PE staff. And then this year they are having a separate site for special education staff that is focused solely on their needs and their learning, and that will be at Grant High School. So we are spread across the county. And looking forward to it. It's a day that is broken up with a keynote both at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and then breakout sessions in between. We have 17 of our D46 staff that will be presenting that day, so really excited, and across all 3 sites. I won't get to see them all, but I know that everyone will do an amazing job.
Thank you, and I'll round it out by just talking for a moment about construction. So board, as you know, we have a very busy construction summer this summer with the updates of 4 of our media centers. Today, our administration met with Wold Architects, or Architects of Record, you've all met them, to start planning for the summer of 27. So we haven't hit summer of 26 yet, but we're already talking about 27. So we kind of did a really great lessons learned meeting, thought about what the process we've been through over the past year, and talked about any updates that we want to make to that process. And just in about a month, we're going to get the ball rolling on decision-making regarding the final 3 media centers for the summer of 27. And to close the superintendent's report, I simply want to comment to our students and families in the room. We're thrilled that you're here. We have 2 students who are staying at the table. Those of you who are not staying at the table, if you weren't planning to stay for the rest of the meeting, we will understand, and this would be a great time to go have your dinner. But we'd love for you to stay. So just mention it. I always, give people that out, right? Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much, Dr. Glickman. I appreciate that. It won't be a 5-hour meeting, I can guarantee you that, if I have anything to say about it. And Mrs. Gluck, my daughter is one of the randomly selected students who is in the NAEP as well, and I can tell you that she does not believe for 1 minute that it was a random selection. She categorically blames me for putting her into the test. So I'm just putting it out there. So I get blamed for everything, just so you know.
You can tell her it was random.
Yeah, I should. All right. We're moving on to the consent agenda. For us, I need a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda, which includes the personnel addendum from earlier this evening.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay?
Braden.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Hune. Halverson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
And Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, great. We do have a few action items this evening to get through. The first one, I need a motion to approve the proposed 2026-2027 school calendar, waiving legal holidays as required under Public Act 096-0640, which include Veterans Day, November 11th, President Lincoln's birthday, February 12th, and Kazimir Pulaski's birthday, March 2nd, in order to hold school.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay?
Weedman.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Hune,
Aye.
and Halverson.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I need a motion, please, to approve the contract award for the 3 rooftop units, the RTUs, at Prairie View with Premistar that was presented to us.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay. Any?
Hune. Braden,
Aye.
Halverson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I need a motion to approve the Press Plus policy updates 120 that we discussed at the last policy meeting.
I'll move. I'll second.
And before we take a vote, I am going to pause and hand it back over to Mrs. Gluck. Yes?
Yes.
For just kind of a quick summary of what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were 2 policies after policy committee that we said we were going to gather some more information and bring back to you. So the first was a question about whether we could, in policy 6:260, add district before community. We can add that as it makes it more clear. And one thing just to remember is that this policy goes along with the uniform grievance procedure, and in order to file a complaint through that procedure, one would have to show that their rights were violated. So it just makes it a little bit more clear. And then the other was about policy 6:60. And that was with curriculum content, and we were gathering a little bit more information. As you remember, there was a question at the end of that policy, and this had to do with Irish famine and adding Irish famine into the policy. The question, as I'm getting back to it, the question asks about, my computer's doing some weird things. Do you see that jumping? Weird. So the question was asking, remember the default was no, so that was where I'm going to give you a little bit more information, but the question itself says, a district may include in its curriculum a unit of instruction studying the causes and effects of mass starvation in mid-19th century Ireland, known as the Irish famine. If offered, the board locally determines the minimum amount of instruction time, and then it gives a resource related to Holocaust education, and the question itself is, does the board provide instruction studying the causes and effects of the Irish famine? And as I said, the default was no. We reached out to find out a little bit more information about why that default was no. The reason it is no is because it is a topic that we may include, and as I shared, we do already teach that. However, the other topics that are in this policy are all policies that are all instruction that is mandated, that we shall instruct, and the Irish famine is something that we may instruct. So that is why it is the default of no. So we can still teach it.
So we can have it say no. I think that's right. We can check the no box so it's not required while still continuing to teach it. And I think one of the things we talked about at our last meeting is that we have so many unfunded mandates that when there's something that's a suggestion, it's nice for us not to add it into our policy so that it becomes something that we absolutely must do.
Dr. Mack, can I just, go ahead.
No, if it's about the ones that Mrs. Gluck spoke to, go ahead, because I'm going to take us to a different policy. I have one clarification. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Mack.
I wanted to clarify the press language in policy 510 under equal employment opportunity and minority recruitment. I have read the update 6 ways since Sunday, and I'm just not understanding the addition of or use of district-issued equipment to record such types of violence. So if anyone was in the policy meeting, can just share like the press rationale, because I wasn't able to dig in enough, but I'm not connecting it. I see Dr. Wolk.
Yeah, so there's a citation at the end of that, and that is in response to the Victims Economic Security and Safety Act, VESA. So the change in law then requires a change in policy. Why that may have been added, had I known about this, I would have researched it a little bit more, but there was an update in a protections law.
Okay. Yeah, I did look into Versa, and I just didn't understand how it anchored back to that particular policy, so, but thank you.
So could we pull it out of the consent agenda and then just come back to it with more information, or do you not need that, or want that?
Sue, when does this policy have to be updated through press? February 28th. So we do, yeah, so we can pull this one out and come back with more information at the next board meeting, that's fine.
5:10?
Well, okay, so this is
And then-
5:10.
I just have to write that down.
We're pulling out 5:10?
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
Yes.
5:10.
So I wanted to circle back to policy 2.150, and this is about committees. I wanted to suggest that we add policy 810, which is a community engagement policy, as a cross-reference to codify our current commitment to cultivating community. And I can explain that now, or we could pull this one out too and give everyone a chance to look at both of those and talk about it at the next meeting.
So it'd just be in addition to the footnotes?
Yeah.
The additional policies?
Yep.
Just cross-referencing.
Just cross-reference it. And then on 810, cross-reference this one, 2150. I can explain why, or we can talk about it next time. It doesn't.
Why don't you explain why, so that we know, if because we'll probably need to look into some things before we,
Yeah,
right, we'll
absolutely.
probably want to vote next time, so, yeah,
Yep.
why don't you?
Yeah. Okay, so if you have those policies up, or when you look at them, there's a the top section talks about kind of the purpose of the policy. So the way I read it was the purpose of 2150, which again is about committees. It says that all these committees assist, this is verbatim language, assist with the board's governance function. And then after that, it lists the specific board committees. There's special committees, but then the board committees are underneath that. It talks about the policy committee, the finance committee, the parent-teacher advisory committee, and the behavioral intervention committee. And it talks, one of the policy committee provides information and recommendations to the board. The finance committee gives financial governance and oversight. The parent-teacher advisory committee develops student behavior policy and procedures. And then the behavior intervention committee develops and monitors procedures for behavioral interventions. In several of those, it includes parents, teachers, a variety of different people, and I thought that was consistent with our cultivating community mission. And it also overlaps with policy 810, thus the request to have it as a cross-reference. Because 810, if you remember, there was an optional part of that policy. If anyone wants to pull it up, I can wait. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, but I'm just. So 810 starts again with a description. It talks about the superintendent's role as a public relations, and it specifies that, and then underneath that is the community engagement piece. Yeah, okay. And it suggests that the superintendent is responsible for developing community understanding of school operations, among other things, and that the board is responsible for involving diverse citizens in dialogue, deliberation, and collaborative thinking around common interests for the district's schools. So our committees do that already. So it wouldn't change the practice of anything. It would just codify. If we add 810 to 2150 and we add 2150 to 810, it codifies that commitment to cultivating community without changing any practice. So that's my thinking.
I understand the ask, and we'll just look into it a little bit, and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
So we'll pull that one out then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Which was 2150. Okay.
I don't know if you want me to speak to that last policy with the law. I happen to know
Yeah, I
this
just
one.
Gemini'd it.
Okay, I have to know this one. There's new law protecting victims of sexual, domestic, and other similar violence and family members of that. And it doesn't allow an employer to discriminate against an employee who uses school-issued or district-issued or system-issued devices to record evidence of that domestic violence or similar. So it's adding that language in there. Dr. Welk, is that what you?
Yeah, so it, oftentimes, if you have your work computer or work cell phone, you're not having your personal phone, it's not gonna the district can't say, well, you violated our AUP by using work devices to record violence. It removes that barrier that people can use any device, even if it's a work device. It protects people who record a crime or violence using their work device.
Okay, so that is helpful, thank you. So then, would we need to address anything with regards to like our technology policy?
I mean, that's a question for Ms. Pelser, but I don't believe so.
I don't think so, because I think it supersedes the acceptable use policy, because it's saying it is acceptable to use a device if that's the only thing available to you under this protection.
Okay, thank you guys. So we no longer need to pull out 510 for me. Thank you.
Okay. We are only pulling out 2150, right? Okay. I'm going to revise the motion. Is that okay? Okay, we're going to do that. Just so we're clear. And just for our student board members too, just kind of a recap, we share this regularly. The board operates under this policy manual. So when we vote on things, it's not in a vacuum and just random decisions that the board makes on things. These policies guide what we can and cannot do and help us make those decisions together. I'm going to call for a motion to approve the Press Plus policies and also taking out policy number 2:150 for further consideration.
I will move the amended motion.
One second.
Okay.
Halverson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Hune,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have unfinished business on our list, and the item we have tonight is the policy committee feedback. Mrs. Miller, is that something you're providing this evening with, or was that?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, just a quick, if you remember at the policy committee meeting, we did a check-in question, which is something we haven't done before. So I wanted just to pass on this. I'm still working through some of the information, the comments and that, just playing with how to do that. But one thing that's come across clear that I just wanted to check with you, the assumption I heard was that we're in alignment, all of us, I think, that press has fidelity. There's a whole bunch of expertise behind it, and we value that and generally follow it. We also are not opposed to adjusting policies, a word here or there, so we added district to whatever, 6.20. So generally, we agree that those policies as written, that we want to follow those because they help us maintain compliance. Is that correct? Okay. With that, is there anything further you guys wanted to, I didn't give you any heads up on this, but if there's anything further you'd like to add to that check-in before the next policy meeting, you have plenty of time. Tell me now or email me, but I can add that. If you thought, I don't know if you're like me, but a week later I go, oh, I wish I had said that. So just making space for additional comments. So, okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Miller. Next, we're moving to the new business section of the agenda. First up is the scale server environment purchase. Is that Ms. Pelsworth? Oh, yep. Okay.
All right. So as a part of the Maintaining Excellence referendum plan, we are implementing intercoms, internal access control, and K4 security cameras to our environment this summer. As a part of the intercom project that has already been approved, there was $30,000 for servers to be added, one for each of the 7 buildings. to support these new safety and security systems. So at the same time, our current centralized server environment is set to be refreshed in a year or two. And so taking a step back from these projects and knowing our current server environment, it makes sense. This proposal to move to a scale computing server environment will create redundancy and more reliability for these critical new services that we're adding. It will create a server environment that is easier to maintain. So it's one server environment to be updated instead of 2 separate, and actually 8 separate server environments. It also consolidates planned spending into a strategic investment rather than splitting it across multiple different overlapping purchases. So this proposal would remove $30,000 of servers from the intercom project. We would take that back, and it would cost an additional $52,000 to purchase this scale computing server environment that would provide these extra supports and would, make the environment better and safer.
So I just have to notice that behind you, like I have line of sight to Daryl, and as you're talking, he's nodding vigorously.
Thank you for noticing that. I wanted just to add one more piece of information to the board, which is that when Mrs. Pelser brought this to me first, one of the questions that I asked her was, is there room in the 25-26 budget that you manage to cover this cost? And the answer to that was yes.
Yes, thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're going a little early, but then it also saves us later because we don't have to pay for it in a year. We're gonna pay for it now.
It'll save us from spending more now and later. Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have an answer to this question, but do you have an estimate for the lifetime of the new server?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about that to make sure that this was the right investment. Servers typically last between 5 and 7 years, but because of the way that this the scale computing works, it is something that we think we can maintain definitely through 7 years.
Ms. Pelser, when you talked about the redundancy, just to go a little deeper on that, is there like business continuity testing kind of built into that and a cadence now, since we're breaking it up from a centralized server space to, now we can kind of roll over testing, over 7 or 8 as opposed to just that centralized one where you have to take the system all the way down?
Yeah, so the way scale computing works is it's kind of 3 separate nodes. And so it's kind of like a team working together to balance the load of the work that needs to happen. It also allows for if one team member is out sick or is having some issues, the other 2 team members can carry that load. And so we don't lose critical services, but they're just adjusted based on need. So that's where the redundancy really comes in. And we also back up our server environment too, offsite, so that we're secure in that way as well. I don't know if that's part of your question as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Pelser. Next up on the new business, we did add the Grays Lake Planning Supplement discussion. Did you want to launch that, Mrs. Miller? Or?
Sure.
Yep.
I just wanted to make space for discussion about the supplement, if you've had time to look at it or parts of it. I just wanted to, again, ask just generally what stands out to you, what pops for you about that supplement.
I'm going to jump in real quick and then I'll hand it over. I did reach out to the board to send me comments and stuff so that I could perhaps put together, kind of a cohesive response to share with the village from us as board. Obviously, that doesn't preclude you sharing in the feedback that's due by February 16th. By all means, go and do that as well, which I'm going to do as well. But then I'd also like to do a separate one and so I've started to get some responses from everybody. So if you're able to get those into me, the next couple days, I want to try and organize them, maybe thematically, and fill out whatever form I need to fill out as the District 46 board. versus individually, right? And we did go to the committee, Christy and I did attend the hearing, and I'll let everybody else speak to it now, and then I'll jump in after that.
So Dr. Mack, I do owe you a response to the email. I think my thoughts, I'm still kind of processing. I think to answer your question, Mrs. Miller, one of the biggest things that jumps out to me is how intentional we've been with like capping the size of Grays Lake as a community, recognizing our capacity with all this acreage of open space and land that we've protected, but at the same time where it's like a 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, because then when you start talking about, you know, business growth and driving economic vitality and things like that, it's like, well, but we're capped here. I think the capacity could have been upwards of like north of 40,000 people, and we're somewhere about like half of that, right? And intentionally so. And so it's like, well, how do we reconcile the needs of the community where we're kind of capped? We know people want to come here. We have all of this open space that we've protected. Do we look to consider rolling back some of that to make room for more development? In my head, I'm just trying to understand, like, you know, we're trying to drive business and growth here, and with business and growth comes families and the need for housing and school and education, and how do we do that when we've been very intentional about capping our residential living space? And so I don't know how to quite articulate that to you yet, Dr. Mack, but that's what's been percolating through my head as I've read the supplement.
So I sent you mine, Dr. Mack. So I had 3 things, and definitely redundant with a lot of what's been said already. I think, you know, one of the things I did notice was, obviously it's a village document, so it's not about the schools, but didn't really talk about other essential infrastructure to the village. And I think one of the things that I would like to see is that there be an explicit acknowledgement of schools as essential infrastructure for the community. You know, schools are a major decision point for whether or not families decide to live somewhere. And I think in that sense, just being acknowledged as infrastructure partners and major stakeholders in growth and development decisions, and maybe not just the school districts, but other taxing bodies as well. The other one that I thought, this is my, you know, we can decide if it rises to, this is the statement from the board, is I think being clear that village, don't assume that we're going to give you tax abatements, that we do not have the financial capacity to be offering a bunch of incentives for new construction. And so just maybe making that clear. They do mention it. We've talked about that many times before, so I won't belabor it. And then the third thing I think gets to what Ms. Nash was alluding to, which is it talks a lot about like the economic and market benefits of residential development, but what it doesn't address is the impact on schools. And I think I would like us to really take the lessons of what's happening in our neighbors to the south as how can we avoid that? How can we avoid a municipality moving forward and saying yes to a huge residential development without aligning with the districts on what's actually needed financially to accommodate building, you know, a massive new development, and that a one-time use fee is not it. Like those students and houses are going to be there forever. And I think it's a good lesson that we could take in this village to say, what are the conversations that need to happen up front for any planned residential development? What is the impact? And it's not really about, you know, they talked about density and stuff, but it's really about the EAV for us. So like, and Jim, you probably know this better than I do, but the idea that if you build a single family home and put 4 kids in it, your tax bill doesn't cover what it costs to educate those 4 students in our district, right? So it's a loss, it's a net loss for the district. And so just understanding, you know, what is the density of the housing and how does that impact the EAV, which is really how we levy taxes, I don't know, I'm not sure how much the village understands those implications, because they're not in here. And then the other thing that came to mind was the idea that once a property is zoned, a lot of the decisions are made at the zoning level, not once it's zoned and then like you're starting to develop, right? So I would also say that it would be great if the plan outlines the village's, and I'm reading from my email, commitment to and specifying the practice by which it will consult with affected school districts, number one, as part of any annexation or rezoning decisions. Because what we've seen in the past is the village going, well, it's zoned, and now the property developer has the right to do what they want with the property. We can't actually change any of that. And so, okay, at what point can we? And that's when I think it would be great for taxing bodies, including schools, to be included. And then, so early during annexation or rezoning decisions, and then during planning and negotiation of residential or mixed-use developments, especially in situations where enrollment to the district could rise without a proportional increase in EAB. So those were my thoughts.
Can I go? So, being a supplement to the regional plan, right? I would ask everybody to take a lens of the old plan and see what has come to fruition since that one has happened. Not very much of it, okay? Especially when it comes down to residential. The plans for what they showed in the supplement up on Rounds Road, I've been hearing plans for that for 20 years. A lot of it is what the property owner wants to do with it. Do they want to sell it? And then what the village has in their comprehensive plan zone-wise. Classic example, and no, the old fairgrounds isn't in our school district for tax dollars, but that's been closed for 20 years. And they've had people come through with plans and fall apart, and it's very difficult to get things done on a scale that big. I think when I look at that supplement, I look at kind of what their hope is that's gonna happen. You know, take the 1908 property on Belvedere Road, right? It's a small piece of property and they wanna put 15 houses in there. Well, that's just a fill-in is how they're looking at it. Is if somebody wanted to do that, we could do that here. But that requires the person who owns the land to wanna sell the land. And it would also require the state not to come through and take some of it to widen the road if they ever get around to that, right? So there's a lot of things that can change the supplement. So take it as a wish list for the village, not necessarily this is what's gonna happen. You know, the one thing I didn't see in their plan was at 83 in Sherwood. Nothing really like residential wise there, but they approved a sketch for 24 townhomes on 5 acres of property up there already. So their supplement's already out of date. So it all depends on how I know your question was how would we be impacted by, 250 new students in 5 years. It would take even if they started all those projects today, it'd be more than 5 years before I think you would see 250 new students. By the time you get the infrastructure in, the roads, the buildings, the kids, and grown up. So I just asked to take a lens of, take it as a little bit of grain of salt. This is the wish list of what they want to do. Doesn't mean we don't pay attention to it, but I think we also need to pay attention to the other villages that do have more land that can develop. Round Lake Beach, Round Lake Park, Round Lake all have land out 120. Well, Round Lake and Round Lake Park have land out 120 that could impact our district. So we should be paying attention to those as well. The other thing I ask is, and maybe it's time for us to have a conversation regarding our impact fees and get ahead of the curve to maybe have a conversation with the villages and say, hey, we would like to see about raising our impact fees, because they're the ones that kind of set them. We didn't get a choice in them. The villages just come out, oh, we're gonna give you, $2,000 for a 4-bedroom home, and that's what we got. So it might be time to have those conversations with those villages and say, hey, these were set 25 years ago. Can we adjust them to $2026 or $2027 so that we can generate what the purpose was, is kind of get through that first taxing year. Not necessarily pay for the schooling, because one house does not pay for the children inside it. It's the community that pays for everybody, regardless if there's kids in it or not. So, but if we can take some of that burden off a little bit for that first year with trying to get in, raising and of the impact fees, I think that would go a long way to at least opening that conversation. That's all I have.
So I'll just add to that, kind of piggybacking on what you're saying and what Mrs. Braden, you said too. I think what I was hearing was that we might want to consider creating or inviting the village to create a formal governance mechanism that supports our collective understanding of the impact of land use decisions on schools, on police and fire, on libraries and park districts, similar to what we looked at, Dr. Mackey and I saw that Wilmette does. So something where we have board members and staff members coming together, and it's not, this has happened in Grayslake before under Mayor Carey. There was a gathering of board members from all the taxing districts and staff. So this isn't something that's new necessarily, it's just something that's effective. I too have concerns about the residential development because it's not just new kids in the district, it's busing routes, it's additional administrative staff that we desperately need, additional student services that need to be required, all the things that you've already said. I also think that open space drives property values up. It's actually a driver for economic development, and so are schools. I sent this report to you already. I think the title's telling. It says public investments in education can spur equitable growth, pay for themselves, and create jobs for stronger economic recovery. So I would love to bring that to the table so that we look at schools as not beneficiaries of businesses, certainly appreciate businesses, but we are drivers that attract businesses. And I think that needs to be part of the calculus as we talk about what happens next in Grayslake. We also have a lot of purchasing power. And so if we might be able to drive some innovation or some entrepreneurship over the long term, but also align our purchasing power when it makes sense and with our administrators' recommendations, but perhaps that would help diversify the businesses that are in hometown Grayslake, because I believe I read that they are dependent on a few of them for the majority of the income that comes in. Let's see, I also think that similar to, I think what, maybe I read into it, but it would be great to have a mechanism to really look at what we've kind of like lessons learned from the past. We have made land use decisions that have, not we, but collectively as a community incentivized harder, Medline, FedEx. We have a landfill, we have a logistics center, and now the data center is coming in. I don't know how much revenue, I know what revenue was projected to come in, but I don't know how much actually came in. And I think it would be good to kind of track that to see, so the landfill in particular, for example, was supposed to generate $25 million for libraries, parks, and schools. And I don't know, did it come in?
Yep.
At this point, we don't have any record from 2009 to 2014 of any intergovernmental agreements. So if it came in, how did it come in directly to the schools? And that's just an example. But again, what's the actual, not just projected revenue, and then what's generally the return on investment of not only businesses, but open space and schools, and then the impact on innovation and local entrepreneurship over time. So again, I just think it's an opportunity for us to develop a formal governance mechanism that we can talk in public so that our residents know kind of what that looks like and how we track it and monitor it. Did you want to add to the landfill? Did you have more?
I can just tell you through memory that, yes, the money came in. Now, did that whole dollar amount come in? I don't know, because it had been extended at some point. But like Frederick Lane, as an example, was built with that money. That road that we used to come in and out of the school and get back and forth for our buses, that was part of what was built for the school district on their request at the time. Station 2 for the fire department was built by those funds. So they did distribute those funds out over that time frame. I don't remember what the park district got, but those were two that I remember the school district and the fire district both got.
So is that recorded somewhere that we could?
Oh, I'm sure
learn?
it's recorded by the village somewhere.
Right, and
Yeah.
we don't have access
So-
to that, so it'd be great
So
if we got together
technically,
and talked.
technically the station, I can speak more to experience with our Station 2. That building itself is owned by the village of Grays Lake. The fire district does not own that. We occupy, we rent it to them, rent it from them for like $1 a year for 100 years, right? Because they couldn't, one taxing body cannot directly give money to another taxing body. So in order for them to do some of those projects, the village has to build it, own it, and
Maintain it?
no, we have to maintain it. That's part of the agreement. We maintain it. Build it, own it, and then rent it out in order for that to work. They cannot do a direct dollar for dollar, here, there's $2.5 million to build a new fire station, do what you want with it. It had to be, there was very stringent ways for that to be done. So I do know those funds have gone out over time. The exact dollar amount, did it all 25 million or whatever it was go out? No, the village should have record of it, and it's easily foiable.
Sure, I don't think we want to spend taxpayer money on FOIAs when we're both, but it's available is your point, and we can talk about it, yeah. Okay, that's great. I just think it's a good time to develop a formal mechanism for these conversations.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything earth-shattering to add. I think I agree and concur with everybody, and certainly with when we attended the hearing. My largest concern, and I see this just in a lot of the things, and again, I know that we are a school board, so we're dealing with school issues, but it's conspicuously or inconspicuously absent from village communications about the importance of schools in the community. As a business driver, as a driver for the community, as a place that allows people to choose where to live. You know, even at the hearing, there's you know, just anecdotally, there's not one mention of schools, either for us or for District 127, and that's just a narrative concern that I have with that conversation. So moving towards more intentional conversations where we are included as a driving force in a community rather than simply a receptacle for taxpayer money changes that narrative a little bit. So
Yeah, just one more thing I wanted to add, which this is napkin math, borrowing Jim's phrase, but if we look at our school district as a business, just the business side of it, which we don't often, I mean, I think we're more interested in people and the kids and the learning environment, but if we do switch our lens and look at the business side of things, if we add the number of people that our district employs with the number of people that 127 employs with the number of people that CLC employs in the industry of education, that's 1,744, again, napkin math, jobs that this industry of education provides, and that doesn't include our private or charter schools. So when we think about, for just our employees, a third of our employees live in Grays Lake. More than that live in the 6 other communities that we serve. It makes a circular investment. We pay them, they pay taxes, which allows us to pay them. There's something wise, I think, about having more conversation about that. So just wanted to add that in.
okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to topics for future agenda items. Dr. Glickman.
Yes. Well, at our February 25th board meeting, we'll go back to 2 topics from this evening. So we'll bring you that scale server environment action item from today's meeting, along with coming back to policy 2150 with the request to cross-reference it to 810. So we'll come back with more information about that, and you can vote on that policy then. Then there are some new topics for that evening. The first one is I'd like to bring to the board I would say a first round of conversation, or maybe another round of conversation about strategic planning. So in order to explain that, let me just roll forward to the future a little bit, on April 8th, we intend to bring you some facilitators to talk to, right? And facilitators to give presentations to you. In preparation for that, I have sent requests out to actually 9 different strategic planning facilitators, all who have been recommended by local school districts, and asked them for proposals. Of those 9, 7 have said that they're sending proposals, and I already have 3 of them. So what I want to do for you, board, is to put those together in the future into folders for you to review and ultimately give input to decide who you want. I'm imagining maybe 3 or 4, right, to come to the board meeting on April 8th to, and then you can hear from them and then ultimately make a decision as to who you want to work with next year for strategic planning. So, in order to get ready for that conversation and get ready to give that input, my intent was that on February 25th, we could have some discussion. And I was planning to just pose 2 questions, which I'm just going to give to you now so you can be thinking about them. One is, what do you think is important in the final product regarding strategic planning? And so by that I mean, here's a sentence starter. We need a strategic plan that is fill in the blank. So something, be thinking about that. And then, what do you think is important in the process? So those were the 2 questions that I was planning to give to you, but I guess I'm going to ask you to think about other questions that you might have. Send them to me because I can put it all together just to guide that conversation. And then once that conversation has been had and we have all of the strategic planning proposals, I'll share them out with you all electronically along with Dr. Carmona and members of our cabinet, and give you a chance to read them all and then do some kind of like a polling so for you to let me know who it is that you want to see on April 8th. Any questions or comments about that process?
Just thank you for making it easy and doing the legwork for
Yeah,
us.
absolutely. That's kind of been my pleasure to be behind the scenes. Like I'll gather all this together. You decide. But I'm happy to do it, so you're welcome. Also at the next board meeting, we'll be bringing forth a Chromebook purchase discussion. It will be time to purchase new Chromebooks for our students, and so Linda Pelser will be bringing forth discussion on that, yes?
I think we were going to ask if we wanted to have a discussion.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. In that, we must purchase new Chromebooks, and that Mrs. Pelser is entrusted with finding us the best possible cost. Would you be open to not just having discussion at the next meeting, but actually having an action item? Because we do have to do it. Is that okay? Thanks for the reminder. All right, great. So we'll do that. Action, good. And then, let me just fix this. Okay. Then we'll bring forth also a lighting project, LED project for GMS. That's a discussion next time. So that's all the next meeting. On March 18th, we'll be doing a staffing update. So that'll actually be a finance committee meeting. So we'll be bringing you a staffing update and recommendation. And we will have already done the Chromebook purchase, so we can get rid of that. And then potentially a GMS lighting project LED action item. On April 8th, our GMS Panthers will be back presenting to us and at the table. And that's the evening that I intend to bring you those strategic planning consultants. And that's as far as I've got at the moment, except to say that April 22nd, the PC Wolves will be back that night too. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Glickman. And just a quick reminder for the board, April 15th is the IASB Learning Dinner. If you have not let Sue know of your attendance, please do so. This is the one that is, I don't remember the speaker at the moment off the top of my head, but I will find that out. But just get it on your calendars. Yeah. Yes, Bennett.
When is the next board meeting?
Good question. The next board meeting is in 2 weeks. So that'll be on February 25th, right? February 25th. And although we won't have you at the table that time, you are welcome to come to the meeting or to stream it online.
Watch the live stream in your
All
jammies.
right? Excellent. You can stream it online. Thanks for asking.
We had a whole 6 viewers tonight on the YouTube channel, so we're
can make it 7.
We're rocking the viralness. Yeah. Do we have? Yes.
Do our students have any questions
that's
for us?
just what
We
I was gonna
have-
ask, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
anything else?
Nothing else? Okay. Do we have any public comments signed up at the button? No public comments, okay. All right, I would like to thank Ella and Bennett for being at the board table tonight, for their wonderful board updates, and for being part of the governance process of the board. So I'd like to share a round of applause for our student board members this evening. And like I always say, I do hope that you run for one of these seats one of these days, and you could make a big impact. So thank you for being here tonight. With that said, we do have a closed session this evening. I need a motion to enter into closed session in accordance with Public Act 5 ILCS 120/2, paragraph C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony excuse me, on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, and we do not anticipate any further business after the closed session, so we will adjourn directly from there. Okay?
Hune,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye?
Halverson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Heck,
Aye.
and Nelson.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you for being here, everybody. Good night, have a good evening.